The Icons of Real Estate Podcast. Are you ready to learn the proven money-making secrets from top-producing Icon agents? Ready to skyrocket your business? This podcast is for you. Tune in every week and find out how to implement proven strategies to 10 times your business. From $3 million to $30 million in just 12 months. Brought to you by the Masters in Real Estate Marketing, Arter SEO.
Welcome to the Icons of Real Estate. I'm Tim Calloway. We have a very special guest for you today, Michael Elefante, who is actually going to teach us about investing in B&Bs and how to make money in his Investor Academy. Michael, how are you?
I'm wonderful. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, no worries. So, pretty hot topic, with investing in B&Bs. And I know it's something short-term rentals is something that we're all kind of interested in, being investors ourselves or buyers ourselves or realtors ourselves. So, well, first, before we get into that, how you operate, how did you get started?
Yeah, so just a brief background. I was an athlete growing up, played baseball through college, and that's where all my time and effort and passion was poured into. I was hoping to play professionally, had some injuries, had some up and down seasons, ultimately did not pan out. So stumbled my way into the workforce, have no idea what I wanted to do or what to expect. Rude awakening on, I guess, what you could call the rat race, but I was just in a tech sales role, something I just had no passion in, and pounding the phones every day, making 100 cold calls. I was like, what am I doing with my time? And I was just chasing the dollar amount, kind of like the carrot hanging in front of the horse on a stick, right? And at that point in time, I just started diving into a bunch of books, YouTube, and podcasts. There's got to be a better way. Learned about this overarching theme of financial freedom, and a lot of the roads with financial freedom ultimately lead to some type of real estate investment. So that's what ultimately got me interested in real estate. And fast forward a couple of years, I was just learning and saving. I learned about short-term rentals when I moved from Austin to Nashville, and Nashville being both Austin and Nashville being hot tourism markets. I stayed in a couple Airbnbs, and I started just to crunch the numbers, built a basic investment analysis template, and I was just like, if these numbers are right, like, why am I not doing this? Why isn't anyone doing everyone doing this? So mustered up the courage to finally make the first investment, blew beyond my expectations. The cash flow is really substantial. That first property was a 4-bedroom property in about 10 minutes outside of downtown Nashville. And that property today cash flows over $6,000 a month. So it's been life-changing for me. But after that, we were all in, started acquiring properties any way we could. And then ultimately hit financial freedom within 12 months of making our first investment. My wife and I quit our jobs after 16 months, traveled in a camper van around the US, managing our properties from our phone. So kind of a wild story. And then just settled down in South Carolina recently, had our first baby about 7 weeks ago.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And here we are today. So
yeah. So a lot of exciting things happening all at one time, man.
Yeah, a lot of going on. We're busy.
I mean, this is a real estate podcast, so I guess we need to stick to the real estate side. But man, we talk about all kinds of things. I'm from Texas. Let's talk about Texas. I got kids. Let's talk about having kids. I got a wife.
Yeah, you talk about Texas barbecue. We'll be here for a while.
I know, right? We'll have the great. And then you went to Tennessee. I'm like, wait a minute. You got Tennessee barbecue sauce. You got Texas barbecue. You see how the evolution of this happens, and we could talk about. There should be a podcast for every topic, Yeah. So let's go ahead and tell me about So now you've set up a training, right? I mean, you set up a process where you can help others help themselves, so to speak, and generate cash flow doing the same thing you did. Tell me about that process and what they can expect.
Yeah. So first of all, I never thought I would be a coach or a consultant or course builder per se, or a content creator, but all that kind of happened organically. I had learned so much on social media and through buying other people's programs. So I started sharing free content online, and I was taking free calls with strangers across the country, coaching calls, essentially just trying to help them. And a lot of them were encouraging me, if you had a program or, training or whatever, I would pay for it. And I'm like, really? Okay. So I spent a long time putting a program together. I've offered several different things in the past and just molded it into one solid offering recently. But I've coached over 800 people on how to successfully start, set up, and manage a short-term rental business, and managing on sites like Airbnb and Vrbo. So it's 6 months of coaching, and then you get lifetime access to 75 plus video trainings, all my resources, but basically soup to nuts, everything you need to know from a beginner to an expert with short-term rentals and how to be successful in that space.
Nice. So what are the yeah, definitely not pitfalls, no negativity here, but what are the challenges that people might find if they don't take your course? I mean, if they don't get involved with you coaching them and they go about this on their own, like a lot of people do. I mean, there's far more that go out on their own than take the time to get a coach or someone to train them. What are some of the pitfalls you will run into?
Yeah, I think generally in short-term rentals, some of the things that if you don't leverage the right technology and the right data, you might not be making the right decisions, investment decisions per se. So you can use sites like AirDNA and use that effectively to understand historical trends in a market. What the supply like? Is it drastically growing? But also, what's the demand like? Is the demand or supply going to outpace one or another? Because the last thing you want to do is get in a market that's a little oversaturated and not understand who the clientele or avatar that you're going to cater to. Because you want to set your property up in the right way to when people are scrolling online, who's going to book it at the highest possible daily rate and for the highest possible occupancy throughout the year. So a lot of people just kind of pick a random property in a market they heard was good and they stand it up bare bones, super cheap. They don't take professional photos, they don't stage it correctly, and then they don't use any tools as far as like automating the management or the pricing. They don't use data and like how to dynamically change pricing, such as like a flat price throughout the year. All those things combined can ultimately really, really make it tough for you to do well. You can still cash flow probably because the margins are so strong. However, in a competitive marketplace, if you're in that bottom 50, 50th percentile or so of performing properties, you're going to be in a race to the bottom on price wise to attract guests long term. Personally, I never want to compete on price. I want to compete on experience, especially during the busy season, and then make sure I capture bookings in slower seasons when other people may not be capturing bookings. So those are kind of the common pitfalls, I would say, if you're kind of first starting it out, don't have much information or background on it.
Okay. So one thing that I'm always asked, over 200 and some odd shows, and they always ask me the same thing. What are the best areas to buy in? And I know that's unfair because all areas can be good. And like you said, Texas and Nashville and places like that are hot areas. And I'm in Florida, so I can't even get into how many there are down here. But are there pockets that are hands off? Like, I mean, literally, do you have a video on don't buy a B&B in this area?
Yeah, there's certain markets really based on regulation. If
Okay.
it's a little bit, and not to get into politics, but typically if it's a little bit more of a progressive city, they might be more likely to apply policy that changes things quickly. In more conservative areas, it may be more friendly to homeowners. You might see a little bit less regular, at least less quickly change in regulation. Because as like a real estate investor for short-term rentals, you want to be in a place where there's not going to be a lot of change or surprises that will affect your business. Because technically, if they said, "Oh, it's illegal now," then you might be, shit out of luck. So there are areas like Nashville where they have been very good. They're friendly to investors. The tourism really supports tax revenue for the city and the state, where they'll grandfather in existing permits if they do make rule changes. So understanding those types of information and data sources are going to be really critical to help you make better decisions. So certain places that I would not invest would be areas that have very strict rules and make it very difficult to operate, especially remotely, as I'm a remote operator of my properties. There's lots of great markets, though. There's really two different types of markets, in my opinion: urban markets and then traditional vacation markets. Urban markets being like a metro area, like a Nashville or Dallas, Texas, and then vacation markets like your beaches, mountains, and lakes. So if I'm looking at urban markets, I want to see solid tourism and then growing population, because both of those things support the long-term investment and then the steady occupancy and daily rates. And then vacation markets, it's just really understanding the data and the supply in the market and making sure you compete and sell on experience.
You know what the beauty is, Michael, I think, of the short-term rental game, and that's what I call it, the short-term rental game, is that if at the end of the day, you're just like, I don't want to do this for whatever reason, you just, there's a million reasons people get out of investing in properties, but you can still sell the property. It's a tool, it's an avenue to garner revenue. And then, you just say, okay, I'm still, and in the right market, you're going to be looking at a gain there too. So it is a nice way to generate nice cash flow, and that generate cash flow while your investment grows.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, absolutely.
yeah. So tell me what's in store for you? I mean, at the B&B Investor Academy, what's the next 1 and 3 years look like?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to help as many people as possible achieve similar results as I have, and hit financial freedom. That's the most satisfying aspect of it, to hear people tell me that they're leaving their job, or hey, now I don't have to rely on my job for income. I can support my family, my parents, my kids, whatever it may be. So the goal is just to reach as many people as possible, and really grow that business. So that's kind of a huge focus of mine right now. And then I have other businesses that I've started recently. So just kind of focusing on, I never really thought I'd be an entrepreneur, but it's kind of all happening naturally. So just trying to figure out how to divvy up my time accordingly while maintaining the time freedom aspect, which is what I was after in the first place. So making sure I have plenty of time, set myself up to spend as much time at home with my daughter and my wife as I can.
Nice.
But yeah, those are the goals.
Yeah. It's kind of fun being an entrepreneur. It can be scary, at times, but it's kind of fun.
It's definitely better than I guess the
The
alternative.
alternative.
So.
Hey, I never thought at 52 years old I'd be running a few podcasts, 5 of them a day. So things happen, good things happen if you keep plugging along. So it sounds like you got a good program here. We talked about what the caveats are. We kind of talked about, is there a ratio? This is one thing that's always intrigued me in my experience in the short-term rental market. I Is there a ratio, or let's call it a cliff, okay, to where how much you should invest in a property versus expectation of return, and how do you gauge? And I'll tell you why. I'll give you an example. My son is getting married in December, and a lot of family coming down. And I said, you know what? You're not staying with me. Um, I'll rent you a house. Okay, short-term deal. And I know a lot of people, I made some phone calls, and I got an 8-bedroom house for a certain price, right? So is there in your system, do you show people how to actually gauge the rental amount on a short-term rental on a home like that? Or is there a cliff to where, well, you never want to purchase a house over this price because it's never going to garner the cash to make it worthwhile? Is there anything like that? Any models like that?
Yeah. I mean, I have a model that I built myself, but there's a specific set of data and tools that you can leverage out there. Like AirDNA is the one I use mostly, but each property is going to be different, and it's more subjective to the size of the property, the location, the market, and then seeing what historical data has proven to be a fair forecast. But I always rely on the cash on cash return.
Okay.
My metric has always been 20 to 25% minimum for short-term rentals.
Okay.
2 to 3x what most long-term rental investors go after, but it does require a little bit more effort out of the gate and to manage. So I want to make sure the rewards are there. But yeah, usually just cash on cash returns the one metric, and I'll look at total return on investment, especially if I'm factoring in any type of rehab to bring the value of the property up. So just looking more holistically long term, what the benefit is of holding that property.
Okay. Fantastic. So if people want to get involved, and maybe they're struggling, or maybe they've never invested before in short term, how would they get in touch with you, or how would they find you?
Yeah, social media, usually Instagram's the best way. It's just at Elefante6.
Okay. Perfect. Well, we're kind of winding down on time, Michael. I always give my guests the opportunity to kind of take us out, spend a couple of minutes and talk about either their business, hey, their wife and daughter, your pet riding around in the van with you cross country, whatever it might be that you feel is on your heart, your mind, or your soul. But generally, it's about business. Go ahead and take us out.
Yeah, I mean, I think I covered most of it in the podcast today, but I'll just like leave everyone with a couple words of wisdom. Is you can spend your whole life learning something, but you're never going to make progress unless you take action. And I will say, real estate, like anything else, the majority of the learning is actually going to come through the process of doing. And that's something that I wish and probably any real estate investor will tell you, is no one ever said they wish they started later investing in real estate in some way, shape, or form. So, and the last thing is, don't feel like you have to do everything on your own. I wish I bought 100 houses over the past few years, leveraging other people's money or partnerships. But I want to do everything myself, and hindered the growth a little bit in that perspective. But never feel like you have to do it on your own. Like you can grow, further together than you can on your own, especially early on in your career. You'll probably learn more together as well. So those are the two things.
Yeah, great advice, Michael. So the B&B Investor Academy, check it out. And I definitely would like to catch up with you, over the next 3, 6, 9 months, see where things are going, see how things are going. And I appreciate you being on the show today, Michael.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Have a good one.
You too.